Hey, so I know I haven't done a book review in a while, and it's because I've been very busy doing nothing, trying to actually relax and give myself breaks. So that's what that's about. And I didn't even actually do nothing, I still did other things, so I kind of failed at that. Hang on, I think I don't have my mic plugged in. It helps the sound. So a few weeks ago, I read the memory Librarian. Start drawing, and the timing of this is actually, why is there like a dark shadow, or is that just my screen? I think it doesn't matter. So it's actually great timing because I am seeing Janelle Monáe this weekend, and she, with a few other writers, and I'll put the whole thing in the video description, but she wrote this book. So I didn't even know she had written a book, and I think that's amazing. It accompanies a few of her albums, especially the ones whose music reference like Dirty Computer, Electric Lady. I'm blanking on all of the album titles right now, but this book is written like building on the world that was established in her music, which is also just such a cool concept. I've always liked the idea of creating like artwork that is supplemented by music. In fact, that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Like with this piece is part of a series that's all about celebrating and appreciating music. And I know it's probably not the most fun thing to watch me draw right now because it's in the very beginning stages, so it's kind of just me figuring out proportions while talking, but still, so finding that one of my favorite musicians created like a different, like art in a different media to accompany her music just made me so happy, and it encouraged me to, like, it helped me stay motivated for this project, because sometimes when there's not like constant validation or like a demand for the work I'm making, it's easy for me to feel like, why am I making it? Like, is there a purpose? Like, is this a waste of my time? And that's a whole other thing. But like, this reminded me that, or like, there were a lot of parts in this book that reminded me that as long as I'm getting something out of it, it's not a waste of time. And there was even a quote that I had saved to that effect. It says in this book, whatever you're good at, there's someone who will appreciate it. And I was like, oh, Janelle, how did you know that I needed to read that? There were a lot of quotes and lines in these stories that really resonated with me. Like, I highlighted so many things. I think this person's face is crooked. That's okay. So one of them was, oh, I didn't even tell you what it's about. So it's short stories, which I wasn't sure, because I'm not always in the mood for short stories. Like, sometimes I just want to read a whole thing. So I was kind of like, okay, it's Janelle Monáe, I'm sure it's fine. But I was not in the mood for short stories when I started this book, but I'm glad I kept with it because they felt self-contained. Like, they did feel like they reached resolutions. Like, I was still left wanting more, but I wasn't left dissatisfied. And I feel like there's definitely been short stories that have left me like, okay, I don't feel like anything was even close to resolved. Like, I know they don't have to be, but I still want some sort of resolution or indication that things are moving that way. So I won't go into what they were all about, but they all dealt with the themes of being in a marginalized community. There was like a lot of sci-fi aspects to it, a lot of Afrofuturism, dystopian themes. It was just so cool, like the unique society that she created. It reminded me a bit of another book I read, Tell Me an Ending, where it's focused on memory, but this was memory policing, like using erasure of memories as a way to make people fit into what their idea of like a good society is. So if you were in the LGBTQ plus, you were someone who was targeted. But there were a few other identities as well that it was like if you've deviated from the norm, then they would target you and erase your memory using a specific drug. And then that was kind of the overreaching theme throughout each short story. And they were set at different timelines. Like, so some of them were far off in the future where this had become the norm. Some of them were like post that society, and some of them were in the beginnings of that society coming in, those rules coming into power. So that was really interesting. So one of the first quotes that I highlighted was, "We lived in a nation that asked us to fight in order to find wholeness." That resonated with me. There's, even where we are, which is much better than we were, you know, like 70 years ago, there's still a lot of that feeling sometimes that you have to really make an effort to feel the same sense of comfort that other people just feel naturally. Like, you can't just relax and feel safe or feel like you belong somewhere always. And that was also reflected in a quote about one of the men in power. It said, his name was Keith, which is such a weird name. And the quote was that he'd never quite mastered the art of controlling his expression, perhaps because he'd never had to. And I had a specific work experience where the one woman on the leadership team was told in a meeting that she needed to fix her face because she didn't look happy. It was just her resting face. Like, the other executives, like, I've never heard of a man being told to fix his face during a meeting when his face was just resting. So that's crazy. And so that quote reminded me of that. Embrace your own weirdness. That was something I really liked because sometimes I'm weird and I don't always remember that that's okay. So it was nice getting that reminder, especially in a book that was like, where being weird was like almost a crime, to see that in that society people were still like, no, fuck that, I'm gonna be who I am. Loved it. There was also a lot of moments where they were dealing with like intersectionality and the lack of inclusiveness even in communities whose whole thing is inclusiveness. So addressing that, a quote that I liked was, they sing the same lyrics until you scare them and then they need a solution for who you are. So even in like spaces that are supposed to be safe for everyone, like, we still have to make sure that we are actually living up to that. So I love that call out. Another one in the theme of like music and how deeply it can resonate, there was a quote saying, describing a feeling, and it said it was as though someone shifted a radio dial. Sorry, I'm barely drawing. It was as though someone shifted a radio dial out of the static and into the glory of a song you danced to in middle school. And I was like, that is such a specific experience. Like, why is it middle school dance songs specifically call like such a unique level of joy? Like, I loved that. I'm so nervous doing all of this like framework. I need to remember that it's pencil and I don't have to be so scared of it. I'm also working without a reference right now. There is someone who I would like to use kind of their features, but I'm waiting on them to confirm that that's okay, so I can't commit yet. But it's gonna look sick when it's done. It's gonna be very cool. I'm kind of exploring doing like a redraw of a concept that I've done a couple times because my style has evolved, so I want to see how it will look in my current style. And that's actually, there was one more. The days of her past and present and future sat like a weight on her chest, but she couldn't articulate that. That also, I was like, oof, I feel that, because the stress of trying to make sure that everything is taken care of and accounted for and that you will be okay keeps lots of people, myself included, from living in the moment sometimes and just relaxing, which is, like I said, why I took... Okay, that video cut off. I don't feel like looking where it was, but what I was saying was not everyone has the luxury of enjoying their free time. Like, some people, you're so used to hustling to take care of yourself that you feel like you're doing something wrong when you don't even need to live that way anymore. That was the point of that quote. And in case it cut off while I was reading the quote, it was about like the thoughts and stresses about your past, present, and future weighing on you. So that all said, like, those were the biggest parts of that book. I was so happy reading it. It was such a great social commentary on problems without feeling stressful or exhausting or redundant to someone who a lot of those things are relevant to. So I highly recommend it to everyone. As always, it was just so much fun to read and so cool, especially if you're a fan of her music. It's so cool to read something that actually aligns with that music. Like, it makes listening to it feel even more exciting, feels like I understand it better. A lot of the interludes make more sense now, like the world building. I just love it so much. So that is my video. I'm done now.